Could we get started? I think it's time.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for what we hope to be the first of many community conversations about reducing Helena's waste stream. My name is Denise Barber, and I am a member of the Helena Citizen Conservation Board, and I'm also co-chair of the board's Waste Committee along with Ann Brodsky. Ann, say hi.
Hi, I'm Ann Brodsky.
Yes. We also have other members of the board who are in attendance. I see Patricia Heiser and Diana Hammer. And who else is here? Steve Castle is here, might be muted though. And a few other folks, Valerie Stacy. So as they speak tonight, they'll introduce themselves as members of the board. And then some of Helena's public waste staff have also been invited, and we hope that they'll be joining us. And if they are here, they can help answer questions that people may have about the city's operations, current and future, as well as hear what the community has to say. So just by way of intro, the Helena Citizens Conservation Board is an advisory committee established by the City of Helena in July of 2017 to support, recommend, report on, and monitor sustainability measures undertaken by the City of Helena. We are working, among other things, to significantly reduce the amount of waste generated in our community. So to that end, we are sponsoring this forum to begin a community discussion exploring actually a zero waste program for the Helena area. Zero waste is a very specific term that it's basically a very ambitious goal established by the community to divert the vast majority of a community's waste stream from going to the landfill by a set date. So for example, Missoula has 90% by 2050. Pat, can you go to the next slide, please? Pat is also online. Pat Judge is Helena's first sustainability coordinator. Can you say hi, Pat?
Greetings, and Diana Minetta would correct me on that. She was for a short time, some years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. I didn't know that. Okay, so a few housekeeping things. Everyone is automatically muted during the forum, and we are going to have our community conversation, answer questions and address any comments after the four speakers have given their 10 to 12-minute presentations. At the end, to ask a question or make any comments, if you're logged in, either raise your hand and you'll see that option at the bottom of the screen, or you can type your question into the Q&A section. That's also at the bottom. If you're calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand, and then when you're acknowledged by the moderator, myself or Pat, please press *6 to unmute. And then we ask everyone if they could just type in or state your name before you're speaking so we know who's talking. Just as a reminder, this forum is being recorded and it will be part of the permanent public record. And if you need any assistance, you're having trouble with Zoom, we did provide a link for helpful tips. And finally, for more information and to stay involved, like if you have to sign off and you can't stay through the whole thing, please contact Ann Brodsky, who you've met already, at abrodsky@mt.net. I'll be out of commission for a little bit, for a few weeks after the meeting, so Ann is taking all emails for a little while. Okay, so the next slide, Pat. Thank you. So tonight, as you can see, we have 4 people who are actively and effectively reducing the waste stream in their community, who are going to talk to us about what they're doing. We have first speaker will be Chase Jones. He is the Energy Conservation Coordinator, and Chase, along with Katie, who will be our next speaker, has been one of the key movers and shakers of both the development of Missoula's Zero Waste Plan, as well as now the hard part, which is the implementation. After Chase, we will have Katie Deuel. She's the Executive Director of Missoula's Home Resource, which is a nonprofit community sustainability center. And KD2 is instrumental. It has been instrumental in getting the zero waste program off and running in Missoula. Then we're going to have our very own Helenan, John Hilton. He's the owner of Helena Recycling, which is a curbside recycling company that provides pickup and also now mobile shredding services for the Helena area. And just as an aside, Helena Recycling was named the 2019 Recycler of the Year by Recycle Montana. Then our last speaker will be Ryan Green, who is co-owner of Happy Trash Can, which is a commercial and residential compost collection and processing company that serves the communities of Bozeman, Belgrade, and Livingston. Okay, so take it away, Chase.
Thank you, Denise, and thanks to everyone that you introduced earlier and everyone that's tuned in from Helena and otherwise. I am super grateful to be here to participate in this discussion. So thanks a bunch. I don't have a long time to tell a really great story, and my strength is not always being succinct. So I'm going to look at Anne to keep me on time. I'm also going to say—
Oh, that would be me, Chase. Look at me.
Okay, I'll look to you. But in the few short minutes that I do have, I just want to give you a little bit of background about how Missoula's 0 by 50 or Pathway to Zero Waste initiative formed, sort of what it's based in, how we got there, and then a few of the results, some of the highlights since the adoption of our plan. So I'm going to share my screen. Forgive me, let me go back here. Okay. Okay, can everyone see?
Yep.
So again, my name is Chase Jones, and I have the privilege of serving as the city's Energy Conservation and Climate Action Coordinator, of which zero waste is one of the responsibilities under that umbrella. So again, I like to start with sort of how this initiative came about and what it's rooted in. And honestly, it's rooted in the values of Missoula, and I would extend that to Montana as well. So I like to show a few pictures here because I think they're beautiful, and it connects us with those values at the highest level. So first, one of the reasons to reduce our waste stream and undertake zero waste initiatives in our communities is clean air and clean water and abundant wildlife. Again, I think a value that underpins certainly Missoula and most of Montana, if not all, and something that these activities certainly work to maintain, if not improve. Another great part of a zero waste initiative is creating healthy soils. And healthy soils can equal healthy food. And this is certainly a picture of that. It's Missoula's farmers market. And on top of that, it also is an important part of a local economy. So also a huge value that underpins our initiative here in Missoula and most zero waste initiatives across the country. Another is, again, beautiful natural lands. This is a picture of Missoula's Kettle Amphitheater. And the owner and developer, Nyc placed this amphitheater here, and it was no mistake. We value our beautiful landscapes, again, and our open space and open land, and zero waste is something that helps to preserve that. And then, again, local businesses can thrive as a result. So another value that underpins. And then finally, this is a picture certainly of snow and skiing, which we all love, but the point of this slide is we're doing it for the next generation as well. We are a resourceful bunch here in Montana, and a lot of this work and a lot of the reason for being resourceful is so that not only can we be healthy and thrive currently, but certainly future generations can as well. And enjoy things like this great scene up at Snowball here in Missoula. So a few of the values that underpin this, and again, I like to start with that. Just a little bit of the background, we had a lot of community-driven support as well as leadership from local government leading to our zero waste initiative and 0 by 50. So just want to mention those really quick. This is the cover of our Municipal Energy Conservation and Climate Action Plan. It was adopted in 2013 by the Missoula City Council, and pieces of that climate action plan were around, as you can see here, a waste stream reduction policy and other strategies in that plan to achieve climate action goals based in reducing our waste stream. Sort of around the same time, our city was adopting a growth policy update, and that's the high-level document that sort of guides the growth here in Missoula. And reducing our waste stream and environmental quality were huge pieces of that. And so just a slide here to show some of the objectives and some of the strategies included in that growth policy on the way to our full-blown 0 by 50 initiative. Right after our municipal climate action plan, which was focused a really small scope on municipal operations, the community groups and people that helped the city get their house in order with that plan said that we're happy to help the city, but we know that we need to immediately go to a bigger scale, and that's a community-wide scale. The city held to that promise in return for the help, and together with the community, we got to work right away after the adoption of that municipal plan on what we call now the Missoula Community Climate Smart Action Plan. And that really is the root and the beginning of the story of our 0 by 50 initiative. We hosted a couple of community climate action summits to bring, to use, I think Denise's word, movers and shakers in Missoula together to figure out, what areas we needed to focus on in terms of a community climate action plan. And you can see sort of in the top left of this diagram here, we had a group form around zero waste. It was originally called Waste Stream, I think, but thanks to Katie Deuel on the line and her colleague at the time, Jeremy Drake at Home Resource, they brought forward the concept of zero waste, which is a little bit different and importantly different from just a focus on the waste stream. So we got to work there. And the way that worked was we put together a climate action plan on the community scale around and included strategies around each of these bubbles, and leaders of those groups helped us create those strategies and also then move forward with the implementation of them. Katie and Jeremy from Home Resource were the leaders for the city and community of that zero waste group. And they sort of coalesced a group of folks that came to be known as Zero Waste Missoula. And so they said, how can we take this a little bit further than a plan? We really want to get some action done. And so they talked about a bunch of different ideas and did a bunch of different actions. But the one I want to kind of highlight tonight was they decided that Missoula needed a zero waste resolution. And that was a way that they could address the systems needed to really make a dent in our waste stream and reduce what we're sending to the landfill, and also formalize it in local government and in the community. And so they did just that. They put together their ideas about what a zero waste resolution would do, and they engaged a city council member. Her name was Marilyn Marler, and she was the city council president at the time. She now serves in the Montana State Legislature, but together they wrote a zero waste resolution for Missoula, and Alderperson Marler sponsored that resolution. That resolution was Resolution 8044, and it was adopted by Missoula City Council unanimously there in 2016. And that resolution did a couple things. One, it directed city staff to develop a zero waste plan that included those things that you see on the screen. It also defined zero waste, and this is a specific definition. And this definition is put forward by an international group called the Zero Waste International Alliance. And so it is formed by a group of experts from across the world, and is peer reviewed, and it's updated. And this is the current form. It has actually changed a little bit since our original plan, and it actually became a little bit shorter. So the definition of zero waste, formally adopted in resolution and in our plan, is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of all products, packaging, and materials without burning them and without discharges to the land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So as was alluded to before, zero waste is a specific concept and has a specific definition, and this is the one that Missoula chose.
Hey, Chase, we got about a little less than 2 minutes.
Okay, great. So that resolution also set goals for the city of Missoula. And as you can see, we have an overall goal of 90% reduction by 2050, and then a few interim goals along the way. So ambitious goal, but one, again, that our community almost demanded and thought very important for the reasons that we mentioned earlier. And with that, we had a formal initiative called 0 by 50, or Missoula's Pathway to Zero Waste. We went to form that plan by a couple different techniques. One, we knew our community was super interested. We've already established that. And so sought out stakeholders to extract information and ideas, and hosted a series of listening sessions to make sure that we captured what our community wanted and what their ideas around reducing waste and zero waste were for Missoula. The other sort of action that we took in doing developing our plan was we noticed several peer communities along the Front Range of Colorado had been doing this for a while, and they were being pretty successful at it. And so we visited them, we met with them, and we learned from them and took the best of what they had in their plans and what they were doing, and mashed that up with our own citizens' ideas, and that became our plan. Our plan is guided by these guiding principles, and this is important to keep referring back to both in the plan and as we implement it. We call them our North Stars. And so the first one here on the slide is to rethink wasted materials as resources. And this also gets at the zero waste concept of a circular system rather than a linear system. The traditional linear system is we extract resources, we create products, we ship them, we use a portion of them, and then we send them to the landfill. That's called cradle to grave. Zero waste is more of a circular, or what we call cradle to cradle, where from start to finish, from design, it is designed for the next life or that circular system. And we start to think about materials in terms of resources and not just waste. Another important guiding principle is to prioritize upstream and midstream solutions. And that gets at the R's that you've probably all heard about, the reduce, reuse, recycle. There are a few different ones, but upstream is that reduction or taking a hard look at reducing materials from the get-go and being very conscious about what we're consuming. And then midstream solutions is a reuse principle that you're probably familiar with as well. And then recycling is certainly important, but one of the mantras that happened in all of this was recycling is important, but we can't recycle our way to zero waste. Also, just in the interest of time, equity was a key piece of this, as well as obviously transparency and reporting and keeping the community up to date on how we're doing. Just real quick, and I know I'm running out of time, as far as the organization of our plan, out of that, those listening sessions and studying other communities, 4 paths on Missoula's Pathway to Zero Waste sort of rose to the top. And so we've organized our strategies around these 4 pathways that you see on this slide. We have access, and that's just making sure that everyone and everywhere there is a choice other than the landfill. Infrastructure are those large pieces of development that we need to process all of those materials. And so infrastructure, there's a whole series of strategies around there. You can see some examples on those bullets, and I know I'm going really quick, I'm sorry. Education is obviously important to all of this. Folks need to know why zero waste is important, and then how to access zero waste infrastructure and how all of that works. And then finally, we're going to need some policies, and government should be pretty good at this. And you can see some examples there. I have some highlights of what we've done since the adoption of our plan, and it was also adopted unanimously by City Council. Very quick, we have a great website. I encourage you to go there, 0by50missoula.com. Our community loves this feature. What do I do with? You enter a material into this field, and hopefully our website will populate a place for it to go, other than landfill, unless the landfill is the only option, which is the case sometimes. A huge piece of infrastructure that came along, sort of in conjunction, but certainly zero waste and 0by50 helped. The momentum was the city was able to acquire our commercial composting facility, which is now called Garden City Compost and is under the control of the city of Missoula. We created a zero waste events toolkit that's downloadable for anyone hosting an event, complete with signage, and is a great resource also on our website. And then we have a business program where we audit their waste stream, have them pledge at least 3 things to reduce their waste, and then we give them some recognition in the community for that. And you can see this was our first pilot cohort of businesses at the bottom of that screen. I know I went a little over, and thank you for your patience, but that is the conclusion of my presentation, and look forward to the discussion.
Chase, that was excellent. Thank you very, very much for that. Very thorough. And I hope we'll be sharing your presentation with everyone who's here and everyone who wasn't able to make it on our website. So very, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Katie, your turn.
I just interrupt for a second to say that the Missoula Zero Waste Plan is on the CCB, the Citizen Conservation Board website. There's a link to it on the email we sent and the flyer we sent as well, and on the city website. So
that's right.
You can find the plan right there.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Ann. Okay, Katie.
Great, so I'm going to try to share my screen as well here. Oops. All right, can you all see that?
Yeah.
A home resource. Well, is that what you're looking at?
We're just still looking at everyone's videos.
Okay.
I'm wondering, does Chase need to stop? Oh, no, he did already. Amanda, any chance you could help with us? Oh, here we go. Nope. Here we go.
Is that working?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, great. So just so you all know, these slides are not perfectly correlated with my words, so I'm just gonna run through them. It's mostly pictures just to give you a great visual of some of the things that we're talking about. So less informational than Chase's. I've been introduced, which I greatly appreciate, but my name is Katie Deuel. I'm the Executive Director at Home Resource, and it is really an honor to be a part of this. It's so exciting. This is something we've worked on for so long in Missoula and steadily, and it's really exciting to be part of an effort that you all are launching at the beginning. So thanks for being here, and I just appreciate the audience a ton. So I'm curious how many people have heard of or been to Home Resource, and if you want to take a minute to just type into the chat if you've been here, you could do a yes or a no or a been there. That will be fun for me to see. It's not something I'm going to look at right away, but I'm curious. And I will tell you a little bit more about Home Resource in a bit. But we are a nonprofit that envisions a just and vibrant world based on the principles of sustainability, where the potential of people, community, and materials is realized. And you can see right away that's our vision. How we link in materials is really important, but we also have key foundational pieces regarding people and community as part of our sustainability vision. At Home Resource, we believe that we can transform our relationship with materials and create a zero waste world. We believe that community means everyone and that sustainable means thriving. We believe that our capacity to address the critical issues of today and in the power of youth to lead us to the solutions of tomorrow, and that together we can create the world we want to live in. And that includes you all. So a little bit about how we're doing that and our approach. I don't know if any of you saw or have heard of Dr. Rob Davies. He is a physicist, and he came and gave a science talk in Missoula right before COVID, which was lucky for us. The science talk was about climate change. It was fascinating to see that physics perspective on climate change. And he provided us with many crucial takeaways. If you don't know anything about him, I recommend you look him up and check him out. And Chase was really instrumental in bringing him. But one of those takeaways is that we can arrest climate change, but we have to act now, and we have to act urgently. And I suspect that many of you already know that. So you hear that and you think, sure, of course. But I wonder how many of you thought, yeah, I know we have to act now, we have to act urgently, and we can do that through zero waste. And I'm assuming that it's maybe not quite as many. But the truth is that the waste crisis is really inextricable from the climate crisis. And I know Chase has made that point a little bit, but zero waste alone will not fully arrest our climate crisis. And yet, if it's done completely, it will get us really close. And we know we can only achieve zero waste by transforming our relationship with materials, which is our relationship with stuff, which we have quite a relationship with in our culture. And that's also going to transform our relationship with our use of our natural resources. And Chase had those great slides about that to touch those values. And when we move towards zero waste, we are really helping to create healthy food systems, to reduce energy use, and to support those functioning natural systems. So it radically reduces our carbon footprint, and that really is sustainable. And I love that your whole program here is based in that concept of sustainability. That's what Home Resource is all about. So while that is reason enough to work in zero waste, there are a couple more important pieces that I'd like to throw out. And one is that zero waste is completely doable. It's a tangible thing. So we know what we need to do right now to make a huge difference on zero waste. And as we peel back those layers of the onion, there may be things that we get to that we don't know what we need to do or how to do it. But I completely trust that when we get there, we'll know what those next steps are, and that our youth, like those pictured here on the slide, are gonna help us to take those next steps. So zero waste is doable, it is tangible. Zero waste is also a unifier. It's not political. It cuts across our socioeconomic boundaries, and everyone can participate in reducing their waste. And I believe very strongly, and we live in a conservative state, but no one wants to waste. It's not a question that comes up when we talk about this. Zero waste, as much as it's a unifier, is also a multiplier. For every pound of waste that goes in the landfill, that actually represents 72 pounds at least of waste that's upstream in both the extraction, manufacture, and transport of that item. So with all of those great reasons to work on waste and your own knowledge about zero waste, obviously you're here anyway to hear these things, I'll talk a little bit more about what Home Resource is doing and our role in the plan that Chase mentioned. So we are a nonprofit. We work with, in, and for the community to reduce waste and build a more vibrant and sustainable local economy. We have a suite of community sustainability programs, and they really started with our retail building materials reuse store. So a few details about our store. We keep over 900 tons of material out of the landfill every year. We employ over 40 people annually. We have $1 million a year budget. We provide a living wage, we provide good benefits. We spend 96% of our revenue locally. And of that $1 million budget, about 800,000 comes from our store. And that all comes from an average sale amount. The most common sale amount is $5 in our store. So we also pride ourselves on our affordable prices. We are a triple bottom line sustainable business. And so we make very conscious choices every day about reusing things, about buying local, non-toxic things. We put people first, and we want to make sure that everyone is welcome. We have over a ton of nails in our inventory, and we move about 2.5 tons of material each day that we're open. Because we believe that a sustainable economy includes everyone, and because I like to say the dust never settles at Home Resource, but we do have heaps of work to do every day. So we employ people who are experiencing barriers to employment, and that includes age, whether they're youth or elders, people with developmental and physical disabilities, histories of incarceration and addiction, and I like to say everything in between, because most of us have experienced some barrier to employment at some point in our life. And that's a key part of our sustainability mission, and was really the next program that we got rolling. So we have some of our youth interns pictured here. That program benefits us as much as it benefits the people who are getting a job reference, and job experience to take it on to the next piece. So about 2014, as Chase was talking about the Missoula climate plan, and we were beginning to talk more about waste, we realized that while we keep all this stuff out of the landfill every year, and we're doing a great job of that, if we don't change the systems that generate all that stuff, we aren't making as big of a difference as we possibly could. So we really started developing those zero waste programs. And as Chase mentioned, we went straight to zero waste because when we looked at the ways that we could reduce our waste, we looked at composting more and reducing construction and demolition waste and deconstruction, and we realized we can't pick them apart. It's all one package. So Chase has run you through this history. In 2016. We worked, yes, with Marilyn Marler to create the zero waste resolution. I don't know if Becca Boslow is on this call, but I'd like to call her out because she wrote that resolution that was passed with all its whereases and wonderful language. So Becca, if you're here, thanks for doing that. Still stands. And then
She's
we did
gonna write ours.
Okay. Then we had 2 years to create the plan. We passed that plan in 2018. And you all heard about the 4 pathways: access, education, infrastructure, and policy. And so I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of Home Resources' contribution there. And one of the main pathways that we have focused on as a program is the education pathway. So we have a flagship education program. It's called the Zero Waste Ambassadors Program for 5th graders. And we say ZWAP, you can sort of see it written in the slide in the back, knock out waste in Missoula. So we piloted that in 2015. We teach these 5th graders where stuff comes from, where it goes, how to create a circular economy, and that their choices matter. In the 2018-2019 school year, that was before COVID, not this year, we did have well over 1,000 students. We reached all of the MCPS, Missoula County Public Schools 5th grades, and we've had over 3,000 students since the start of that program. Some benefits of the program: we're building a cohort. So when we do this every year, all the students have the same framework and understanding of the principles of sustainability and zero waste. We teach them about the 3 R's, and we squeeze in 2 more, rot and refuse, into that. And we also believe that, like seatbelts and cigarettes, it's the kids who learn these tools and the framework for it, and they bring it home to the parents and ultimately are the ones who are generating that change. Other pieces
you have about 1 minute left.
Okay. Other pieces of our education program, we have workshops where we teach people how-to skills. We run fix-it clinics every month so people can repair things. We do a lot of presentations. We offer educational series. We're just out in the community. And then we've leveraged that work in the schools with SWAP. In several ways. We started with a zero waste pilot classroom. So the teacher takes home they use durable dishes and napkins, and she takes them home and washes them. No waste comes out of their lunch. Then we moved to a whole zero waste pilot school that we did pilot in 2019, and they're finding incredible reductions in waste as a result of the work we've done there. And we're also developing a 6th grade curriculum with the Missoula County Public Schools, who do have other priorities right now, just to note. And then we're working with businesses to move towards zero waste, and hoping to launch kind of a next step in that program in partnership with the city of Missoula to move businesses towards zero waste. Another quick explanation there is we know when we move the big institutions, the city, the schools, the hospitals, and businesses to change a social norm that the people follow. So that's the thinking behind that. So now we do the education so that we teach people why, and we teach the how-tos, and it creates the demand. So another piece that we've started working on more intensely recently is working with the city to generate the infrastructure so it's possible for people to do zero waste. Now they know what to do, how to do it. We need to make it possible for them to do it. So I just wanted to end with a little note here that if you walk away with anything, I hope you leave knowing that what you're doing right now is making a difference, and your actions aren't futile, rather they're vitally important. So this is a movement, and it's a building, painting, singing, dancing, laughing, struggling, exhausting, exhilarating, and powerful movement. And that's part of what we like to show at Home Resource with all the activities that we do. And you may be asking yourself, what is your role and what else can you do? And so I like to leave people with a couple of suggestions, but please volunteer for conservation. A number of you are already doing that with the Conservation Board. Take the 15% challenge, reduce your waste 15% this year, and then take it again next year and reduce it another 15, and so on. Join Missoula's Zero Waste Missoula group. It's a website you can get on, it's a listserv, so you can just hop on anytime. Create a Helena resolution, get ZWAP in your schools, put zero waste systems in your home, in your dorm, in your business, and keep refusing those straws and bringing your own water bottles. So finally, demand the services that you need to do this, because we're only going to do this together. So thank you so much.
That was excellent, Katie. Thank you very, very much for that. And everyone will have access to people's contact information should you want to get in touch with them later as well. Next up is John Hilton here from Helena, Helena Recycling Center. Take it away, John.
All right, thank you. Hey, my apologies. I am having technical difficulties on my camera, so nobody can see me. Hopefully it'll start working at some point. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I am gonna go over the history of my company, and then I'll go over the basically a little update on the commodities that we collect and what's happening in the commodity market. And then I will actually go over our City of Helena curbside program as far as where the numbers are at. And then I will go over our recycling center. So first and foremost, we started our company in 2009, started out of the back of a truck, started collecting recycling. We have since grown and are currently, we have a recycling center which we bring our commodities to, where we bale and then we market the commodities. We currently accept plastics, type 1 and type 2. We collect aluminum cans, steel and tin cans. We collect cardboard. We collect all types of paper, and we collect glass. And those are all the things that we collect on our curbside program. We also just started a mobile shred company in February of this year. So that's a new adventure for us. We're really excited to grow that business and bring it back to our facility where it is, we know it's recycled and it's not taken to the landfill. So as far as the commodity update, as everybody's aware, the last probably a little over maybe 2 to 3 years, it's just declined significantly. China has kind of shut down their imports of and our exports of all the commodities. They're still taking minimal amounts, but it's put a strain on the U.S. to try, and people like myself, just to try to find a home for these commodities. So I'll start with plastics. The ones we used to collect 1 through 7s. Probably 2.5 years ago, we quit collecting 3 through 7s just because we could not find a home for those. Unfortunately, those are now being landfilled. I hope in the future that they just get rid of the 3 through 7s. So the manufacturers, they're just a hard plastic to recycle. Anyway, the pricing and finding homes for our plastics has been very tough. So we are working with different brokers to find the best place for them, and we want to know that they're actually recycled and being put into other products that people can use. There's been a misconception that we're just, some people are just throwing them away. I mean, I'm a firm believer we won't collect if we're going to throw them away, or if the back end is going to throw them away. I did read an interesting article today. A company by the name of Brightmark, they are actually seeking 2.4 billion pounds of 1 through 7 plastics a year. That is such a large amount of plastics. Just for comparison purposes, in 2019, the U.S. exported 1.6 billion pounds of plastic. So this company is going, they're trying to go big. They're it's a plastics to fuel facility. They're going to make low sulfur diesel, naphtha, which is an input for new plastics, and wax. That's what the plastics will be used for. So pretty interesting story there, and I can share that later with everybody if anybody wants me to share the article. As far as aluminum has dropped in the last about 1.5 years. It has remained stable throughout that time. We're actually going, I don't know if everybody's heard this, but we're going through an aluminum can shortage because of COVID. People are drinking a lot of beer, pop, whatever comes in cans. And it's not a shortfall of material, it's a shortfall of the mills that are, the manufacturers that are making the cans. So I think I've heard of 2 huge manufacturers that are coming in to put in new to make can facilities. So we're hoping that actually helps relieve the pricing of the aluminum cans. Cardboard, cardboard used to be our stable Mabel. It used to be the best commodity we had. Unfortunately, when China quit taking the majority of our cardboard, all of the U.S. mills basically became saturated in cardboard, so they did not have to pay that much for the cardboard. So I've seen it as low as $10 a ton, and that doesn't even include shipping. So I've read some other articles about some new mills, basically some Chinese companies that are coming to the U.S. to open up some new cardboard mills to help alleviate the problems we're having here in the U.S. with the cardboard. We did see a jump in cardboard pricing in the second quarter of this year. However, that has diminished in the third quarter. So, and we actually, just so you guys know, our plastics are currently go to Quincy, Illinois. If you can only imagine the shipping cost on that. Our aluminum normally goes to Utah. And then our cardboard is currently going to Port Townsend in Washington to a mill over there. As far as the paper products, that has dropped since COVID happened, has dropped quite a bit as well. we're not using the paper we used to use. The schools are closed, a bunch of businesses have closed, so we're not seeing a lot of paper, and so that's why the pricing has dropped significantly. Our white paper, actually, our newspaper and our white goes to Spokane, Washington. So that's actually the closest trip for us. As I said before, we do collect glass. We collect it from our residential side and not our business side at this point. But all of our glass goes to Ash Grove Cement. It's used as a substitute for silica. And Ash Grove Cement is probably less than a mile from my facility. So Tri-County Disposal has a roll-off that we use, and then they haul that about once a month over to Ash Grove. It's anywhere from 16 to 19,000 pounds a month, so it's quite a bit. To go over a couple of the numbers, Pat, if you don't mind, could you put up the City of Helena curbside program weights?
Yeah, I'll try to screen
Thank
share.
you. And if you can't, I can just read them off, Pat, no big deal.
I'll keep working on it.
Okay, so currently with our City of Helena curbside program, for those of you who don't know, we have a contract with the City of Helena to collect curbside recycling. Those are all the commodities that we do take. And we provide we are source separated company. We give 4 bins, 1 for mixed paper, 1 for plastics, 1 for aluminum and tin, and 1 for glass. Cardboard is normally broken down and put underneath the bins and or in like an unbroken down cardboard box. And we come once every other week to pick up the recycling. And currently, when we started the program in 2016, these are the weights we've collected during that time. So if you look, mixed paper is, and I'll just go by tons, 342.34 tons. Cardboard is at 346.70 tons. Plastics, 128.67 tons. Aluminum and tin, we collect those together so we're able to get those weights, but that's 60.26 tons. And glass is 192.74 tons, which gives us a total of 1,070.72 tons that we are keeping from going from the landfill, which I think is just astronomical. It's kind of crazy. Throughout the COVID, we've had our put out rate is unbelievable. Most everybody, I think our put out rate is about 88%. Where normally it's right in the mid 70s. And we're collecting far more recycling now, and we're getting more signups now due to COVID. Everybody's staying home, and people are really getting into recycling, which I think is great. Pat, and then if you will share the Helena Recycling Center totals, please. So this is when we opened Helena Recycling Center we did at the end, the end of 2016. So basically in December is when our building was finished and we got our baler installed. So we started shipping out our recycling the beginning of 2017. So currently, and this is through to date, we've done 370.98 tons. Just everybody note that this does include the curbside recycling from the city as well. White paper, when I'm saying white paper, we separate our white paper from our mixed. All of our state accounts, we have the contract for the state of Montana as well. We do all their buildings. And they give us white paper, so we separate that from the mixed, which includes news and other types of paper. And then also we do our own shredding, which is considered white. And then Iron Mountain actually brings us their white papers, their shredded white paper as well. So that's why the difference in mixed and white. And white paper obviously is our biggest commodity. So we did 3,388.54 tons. Cardboard we get from curbside and some smaller commercial accounts. And from Tri-County Disposal, they do quite a bit of cardboard recycling as well, and they bring it to our facility. That's 3,149.32 tons. Plastics includes curbside residential, and it also includes the City of Helena transfer station as they bring their plastics to us once every other week, and that's 252.96 tons. Aluminum cans, 62.86 tons. Tin cans, 51.85. Glass is 192.74 because we really only collect, that's the same as a city because that's all we collect. So in the amount of time that we've opened up this recycling center, we've done 7,469.25 tons that we've kept from the landfill, which we're really proud of. As far as the, just wanted to give everybody an update on the current number of customers we have with Helena Recycling. The City of Helena customers that we currently have is up to 1,133. And it's increasing every day. You know, this month alone, it's only the 18th and we've had 40 signups this month. We also do the county residents if it's within our area. We also do renters. We're up to a little over 400 accounts there. And then we do a lot of business customers, including all the state buildings, and that's up to about 325. So all in all, people are really getting into the recycling. I would agree with the other speakers. It's, you know, I get it, recycling should be, everybody should be recycling. However, we need to reduce what we're using instead of using more.
Hey, John, I just
yes.
wanted to ask you if you could wrap up in a minute or so.
I am finished.
Oh.
I'm pretty close, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Well, thank you so much, John. We love what you're doing. We're so happy to have you here, and
thank you very much.
We look forward to working with you as we advance our program further.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're going to hear from Ryan Green of Happy Trash Can in Bozeman. Take it away, Ryan.
Great, thanks so much. Really appreciate everyone that you know, worked on organizing this. Really wonderful to hear all these other presenters speak. So my name is Ryan Green. Alongside my wife, Adrienne Huckabone, we own and operate Happy Trash Can Curbside Composting here in Gallatin Valley. We've been in operation for 4 years, and our main focus is providing residential and commercial clients with the ability to divert their food waste, which is something that had not been available, or I should say readily available here in Bozeman, Gallatin County. The city of Bozeman has been, or had been, collecting yard waste, you know, I think for the past 20 years or so. I could be wrong on that. It could be longer, it could be a bit shorter, but nothing to do with food waste. I think there was a couple, there was a woman in town that was doing some sort of food waste collection from a very small handful of coffee shops, primarily just coffee grounds. And then I do believe there was also a student-ran initiative via MSU in which they were collecting coffee grounds and composting them at like a community compost site. I guess a little bit background. My wife Adrienne grew up in Bozeman. I'm originally from Florida, but went to culinary school, worked in restaurants for a very long time, got interested in local agriculture, went back, got an undergraduate degree in agroecology, worked on a lot of organic farms in Maine for many years, and via farming got very interested in composting. From Maine, I went and worked for the NYC Compost Project hosted by the Lower East Side Ecology Center. The NYC Compost Project was a department of the Department of Sanitation, New York. What I did there is ran, alongside another colleague, we would start them up, run them, and then eventually they would kind of self-sustain commuter compost drop-off. So we would go to busy train stations in Manhattan, set up bins. New York City residents would bring us their food waste. Then we would take them to our processing yard in the Lower East Side Ecology Center, or in the Lower East Side at the East River Park. So really, my 2 years that I spent working in New York City is where I got a lot of my hands-on experience in regards to collections and processing food waste in a high-density setting. My wife and I left New York to come to Bozeman to be where her family is, with the intention of starting up Happy Trash Can. When I first moved here, I got a job working at a local organic farm, Strike Farms, approached the owner, Dylan Strike, and said, hey, I've got this idea that I want to start this, Adrian and I want to start this composting company up. We came up with an agreement where we traded land usage and equipment for basically finished compost. Started collecting from the co-op, was our very first customer. And then basically in the past 4 years have grown it to where we are now collecting and processing ourselves anywhere between 15,000 and 20,000 pounds of food waste on a weekly basis. We are a small business. It's taken a lot of work to get to where we are now. We definitely have grown the most over the past year to 2 years. We really spent the first 2 to 3 years just really getting out there and kind of, telling the community the importance of composting and why we should be diverting food waste from the landfill. Really my thought is that when it comes to things like climate change, composting is a pretty low-hanging fruit for communities, city municipalities, what have you, to address it. So we have been in operation. We've, for 4 years, servicing residential and commercial clients. We collect all the material ourselves. For residential clients, we provide 1 to 2 5-gallon buckets that are picked up either on a weekly or on a bi-weekly schedule. And then for commercial clients, we have 32-gallon or 64-gallon toters. That's all, very dependent. We pick up from, the daily coffee bar, which is 1 64-gallon toter a week, up to Rose Hours, which is by far our largest client volume-wise. And we're picking up anywhere between 25 to 30 plus 64-gallon toters a week just from them. We collect from Costco, the co-op, Montana Ale Works, just to kind of name some of the bigger businesses that maybe you'd be familiar with if you've been to Bozeman. We take all meat, dairy, compostable serviceware, and vegetable waste. And typically folks, maybe aren't used to composting meat and dairy. Well, we're able to do this primarily due to a pretty sophisticated composting system that we have via a company called Sustainable Generation. Sustainable Generation is owned and was founded and owned by a Montana native, Scott Woods, who went to MSU in the late 70s, early 80s. I had worked with his technology in New York City. And so we were able to get in touch, and he's been a wonderful partner of ours. So it basically what it is it's an ASP system, aerated static pile. So we take our food waste, we mix it with our browns, which is carbon that we collect from primarily local arborists in the area. We do collect some sawdust from wood shops that we know where they're not using any treated wood. You know, we have our recipe, we mix our greens and browns together, and then we build out our windrows over a big perforated pipe. That pipe is attached to a control box that has a blower fan and a computer in it. And then we pull a giant Gore-Tex tarp over the top of the pile. What that tarp is doing, a big thing, is it's suppressing odors. It really allows us to process this material. And, you know, we are just in a commercial park outside of Belgrade, so we do have neighbors around. It allows us to process this material in a way where it's not a nuisance smell-wise, but also it is keeping, you know, any unwanted pests via birds, marmots, what have you, out of our piles as well. But this technology also allows us to kind of expedite the composting process. So there is a temperature and an oxygen probe that are in these piles. And basically the computer is reading temperature and oxygen levels and telling a blower fan when to kick on and when to kick off. So we are maintaining kind of optimum optimum temperature range for the optimum decomposition range, which is around 150, no greater than 160 degrees. So, you know, where typically an open windrow system would take anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 6 months to really have a finished product, we are able to take raw material, raw food waste, and have a finished compost. We then still go through a curing process after that in about 8 weeks time period. So we put in raw material and then we take out material that's completely unrecognizable. We still do put it through a curing process as well, because as you can imagine, that material is coming out pretty hot because we're consistently having that material cook at around 150 degrees. That's allowing the most active microbes to do their job of breaking down the material. And then also we're hitting benchmark material. So we're, you know, killing off any potential pathogens, Salmonella, E. coli being the ones that we're most concerned with. And then also weed seeds, things of that nature. So we, and then we take the finished compost and we sell it back to our curbside subscribers. So our residential customers do receive free compost back as being part of our service. That's in the form of 5 gallons of free compost once a month between the months of April and October, so prime, you know, growing season. And we're not super strict either in regards to that. There are definitely some customers who don't take any at all and some who take a little bit more. But ultimately we feel that it's a fair for all involved. And so, you know, that's just an added bonus so folks can see the end product of their efforts, just making that connection. Bulk of our finished compost sales go back to local farms in the area. I mentioned before my connection of, or my history of working in restaurants and then in local farms. So food systems have always been a big part of my life. And so it's always been important for me when starting this business and as we're growing to truly create a system in which we are getting as much finished compost back into the hands of local farmers. We really want to, you know, we're talking to customers about the importance of diverting food waste from the landfill, where of course, and I'm sure most of you do know, you know, the importance of that, you know, in a landfill, organic waste, organic meaning carbon-based material, you know, breaks down anaerobically without oxygen. A major byproduct of that is methane gas. Methane gas is, you know, reported up to 60 times worse than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. So there's the climate change aspect of it. And then not to mention loss of nutrients, organic matter. We want to capture those and bring them back into the system. But really, you know, talking about that piece of it in regards to diverting that waste. Also, hopefully getting people involved more with their waste, you know, recycling being one great way, or I should say, you know, kind of conventional materials recycling is one great way of getting people involved with their waste. And, you know, I do think, you know, kudos to Helena Recycling and John and all the small recyclers here in Gallatin Valley, Gone Green Recycling, and those that are doing a source separated system, because I think we all know that the single stream system was definitely kind of the downfall. And well, you know, maybe we don't know, but in my opinion, you know, not a good system for recycling materials. Not all materials are created equally, as kind of John pointed out there, in regards to commodity pricing and effectiveness of recycling of the materials. But so hopefully getting people involved with their waste, kind of seeing, you know, firsthand when you're separating things out into different bins, you're able to see, oh, geez, like, man, this week I really kind of went a little hog wild at the farmer's market and then ended up wasting a bunch of vegetables. So hopefully that allows people to be a little bit more mindful about their, you know, what they're purchasing, but then also connecting people to local farms and our local food system. So really hopefully creating this closed loop food system in our community. So, you know, as we see ourselves as a waste diverter, we really, you know, want to be a support system for our local farmers, for local agriculture, because quite honestly, if they're not producing compost on farm, which a lot of them are, but never enough to truly, you know, supply themselves with everything, you know, all the compost they would need to really, you know, either if they're building up their soils or to sustain their soils in the long run, you know, we want to be able to provide a good finished product that they know that they can apply on their fields, that isn't going to have any sort of herbicide or pesticides residuals in it. That's another thing. We really just focus on food waste. We don't take any yard waste. If we do, it's only through customers that we know kind of have, you know, that we can trust, and we make sure that they're verified that there's been no herbicides or any really sort of synthetic fertilizers sprayed on the lawn within the past year plus, really. I mean, these things can hang around for quite a long time. So we're dealing with a clean, and when we talk carbon, we're not taking hay, we're not taking straw, we're just taking wood chips and some wood shavings. So we're dealing with a clean stream right up front, so we know that we have a good, clean product in the end for our local farmers. You know, we're also getting everything, all of our finished compost batches tested, so on and so forth.
So Ryan, I think we need to wrap up if you want to have a few moments to conclude.
Oh, great. Yeah. You know, we're just here, yeah, trying to make that connection in Gallatin Valley, and hopefully Helena can do the same.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of the presenters tonight. And we hope that people got a lot out of these presentations, and we're going to spend the next official, like 15, 20 minutes, taking comments and questions from the audience. This meeting does officially end at 8:30, but we're willing to hang out for as long as anyone wants to continue the conversation. So with that, again, if you are logged in and you want to ask a question or make a comment, you can either raise your hand or submit it in the Q&A, and those options are at the bottom of your screen. If you're on the phone and you want to talk, click *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute. And please be patient with us and me in particular as I moderate this portion, because I don't do this for a living and I may be a little awkward about it. So I'm going to start with the questions that have been submitted already in the chat box. We have Kim Wilson asks, for the Helena curbside, so this sounds like it's for John, why doesn't the transfer station take the same range of cardboard, i.e. cereal boxes, paper bags, that Helena Recycling does? It seems like the city's efforts should be better coordinated. So John, can you take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we originally started the program, we did take, which some people call it paperboard, thin cardboard, you name it. There's different names for it. But so we are allotted so much in our mix of corrugated cardboard. And that just comes from our curbside. So the majority of our cardboard comes from Tri-County, which they don't accept it either. And if they were to bring it in, then we would get loads rejected because there is too much of the paperboard in our mix. We have never had a load rejected for that. And if we ever do, we will probably eliminate the paperboard. The city of Helena brings their cardboard to Pacific, and Pacific Steel and Recycle will not take that type of cardboard at this time. So it's I guess I don't know how to answer that. It's basically hit or miss on whether or not some of the mills will take that cardboard or not. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, we have several questions for John, so stay on the line there, John. From Upestein, do you know what happens to the plastic you send to Quincy, Illinois?
So the plastic is actually separated into the different categories, and it's processed into basically pellets. It's washed, cleaned up, and then put into the machines that use it. They put it into pellets, and then these pellets are sold to make other plastics. And one of these days, I would love to go visit one of these facilities because I think it'd be a cool little process.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Let's see, a few more questions here. Here's a question for Katie. Helena has a restore affiliated with Habitat for Humanity, just like Missoula does. They accept doors, windows, paints, fixtures, and other construction-related odds and ends. My understanding is that the current ED is interested in doing more to divert and reclaim what would otherwise be wasted. So question for you is, do you have any suggestions about how we might partner with the Restore to build up our reclamation and diversion in Helena?
That is a great question. I don't know enough about what they take and what the what the dynamic is in terms of supply and demand, because in a business like ours, that's the issue, is getting people to donate enough materials and then also people to buy them and keep all those materials moving. But I think there's a lot of possibility, and one of the things that we're trying to pursue more in Missoula is around construction and demolition waste, which is officially called debris for some reason. And if we can push deconstruction in the building industry, which is booming in Missoula, and I imagine all over the state of Montana, we know that over 60% of the waste in our landfills nationwide is construction and demolition waste. So if we can increase deconstruction and capture a bunch of that, waste. It's a perfect fit, certainly for our store and probably for the Helena Restore, and it just generates a bigger piece of that circular economy. So it's not just individuals coming in, but it's some of the businesses and touches some of our big industries. So that's one thought. I'd be very happy to explore further possibilities as well.
Okay, we might put you two together then. Now we have a question from Mark, who's on the phone, and I don't quite know how to do this part. Pat, you might need to help me. He's got his hand raised.
Yeah, I think I allowed it.
Hi.
Hi, Jill.
Hey, this is Jill on Mark's computer.
Hi,
Welcome.
Jill.
Hi. Thanks to everybody, and especially thanks to John for helping us at Helena High. I've been working with the students at Helena High in a volunteer capacity for about 13 years with Helena High's Green Group. I've got a lot of ideas on the problems and the solutions, and I know now isn't the time to talk about it, but I'm definitely excited to be part of you guys' group. I did generate a list I want to share with you of the waste that comes out of Helena High. If any of you want to see, you go to the back side and you look at the gigantic dumpster and you look inside there on any given day. And then you can analyze that waste stream yourself. But here's what I've come up with. Plastics, paper, cardboard, desks, chairs, e-waste. I'm not sure where that goes actually. Equipment, printer cartridges, whiteboard markers, aluminum, discarded projects like science circus, industrial arts, art, lawn waste. And I think when the new schools were built, I'm not sure if it's the case or not. I'm not sure if that construction material was fully recycled either. So if you guys know anybody on the school board or administration, you know, key players, other people we can identify, see if they're interested in getting involved in your efforts here, that would be my idea.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Jill. So we actually have 3 questions for Ryan. You ready, Ryan?
Oh,
Sure.
the video popped on.
Oh,
Hi, everybody.
oh, hi. Hi.
Hi.
So I have a couple of questions for Ryan. First of all, what kind of tests do you do on your compost, and who do you have do it for you? This is from David Peters.
Great, thanks for asking, David. So we basically, let's just call it a soil test. You know, we're testing for macro and micronutrients levels because our farmer friends definitely want to see that as they're amending their soils. It's also, you know, taking readings for, or getting a, you know, testing for amounts of Salmonella E. coli to see if that's present. You know, kind of, it runs the game, you know, full, you know, it will tell us how much, you know, if the material is fully matured, how much organic matter is in there, if there's any heavy metals or plastic glass in it. So, you know, basically, it's, you know, if you're familiar with the soil test, it's pretty similar to that. And then we use a lab called Midwest Labs out of Minnesota. So that's what we do there.
Okay. And the next 2 questions are fairly similar. Basically, as Helena contemplates a food waste recycling program, both Kim Wilson and Diana would like to know, you know, how would you recommend we start? Maybe you're interested in branching out to Helena. What are some good first steps we could take to get a company like yours off the ground?
Great. Yeah, great question. You know, I should say, yeah, I mean, we've been approached, you know, by some businesses in Helena, and we're a small business, and really, you know, finding someone locally who's going to be willing to do the processing is going to be your big first step. We spoke to a couple of interested parties out of Helena, who have broached us and kind of asked how we got off the ground. And because they were thinking about doing the same. Sounded like they were primarily not wanting to haul but process. And every time we were approached by these people, you know, I kind of asked, well, what kind of experience do you have with composting? And a lot of the times no one had any. And so my first thing was like, well, you know, maybe kind of go out there and find a job working in a compost facility. I know that's pretty few and far between here in Montana. You know, John, I don't know if you'd ever be interested in hauling waste, organic waste in Helena, but
Thanks, but I don't think I can tackle any more projects right now.
yeah, exactly, right. And that kind of brings up a big, you know, so here we are going into our 5th year of business, Adrian and I. We are in the works right now of partnering with the city of Bozeman. So there is kind of some press about 2 weeks ago. The city of Bozeman has applied for a USDA grant that's going to hopefully parlay into a partnership between us and the city. And there's still a lot of details to work out. But what we want to pivot away from is the hauling of material, which in my opinion is kind of our weakest point. And focus more on processing material, which is our strong point. The city of Bozeman, great. You know, they have the infrastructure already in place for hauling large amounts of material. They have been composting yard waste for the past 10 plus years. They're getting a lot of pressure to process food waste. They've had a partnership with MSU. Long story short, I think they're realizing, hey, we don't have the capacity or the expertise to process this material in an efficient manner. Why don't we partner with a local company that has that ability? Similar kind of to, I think, what Missoula has done by purchasing, not similar, but, you know, in the same lines of how Missoula has purchased the private facility and is now kind of running that. But in regards to, you know, we don't have any plans of coming to Helena. You know, really, I would just say push the city as you're doing. You know, I'm sure the city has plenty of, or potentially has plenty of good sites where they could start up a compost facility. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question from Diana for Chase. So thank you for blazing the trail for us as we think about moving to zero waste for Helena. What do you recommend as starting points for us? This forum was one starting point, but perhaps should our next focus be getting the city to pass a resolution? Should we first start getting more community input? Basically, what do you recommend are our first steps from here, Chase?
Yeah, and thanks with the question, helping me with my answer too. Really, that resolution was the tipping point. And so I might back up a little bit before the resolution, and that's to identify community partners like Katie and Jeremy and Home Resource. They drove it. And that community momentum was also a tipping point for our elected officials who then sponsored and adopted that resolution. So I think you're forming that with this group. So continue to build that momentum. And then I would say, set a goal, formalize it with a resolution. Be sure in your resolution, like Missoula did, to include capacity to conduct that plan development and to conduct that process. And once that is formalized by the elected leaders in the community, then it's on the books and there will be accountability there, and away you go. So I think that is a great first step to formalize everything.
Okay, thank you, Chase. So everyone, we're a few minutes before the official 8:30 ending time. And like I said, we're gonna just keep rolling until people stop having questions and or 9 o'clock, whichever comes first. But before we continue rolling, I do wanna first make sure I thank Chase and Katie and John and Ryan for presenting to us and giving us such amazing information to help us move the ball forward here in Helena. And I know we will stay in touch with all of you as we move forward, but thank you for being our North Stars as well. Okay, so we'll just keep going. Let's see. Where am I with questions? I have a question for John, also from Diana. Diana has a lot of great questions. So John, the question is, oh wait, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, this is a good one. So we currently practice source separation rather than single stream curbside recycling. And as Ryan noted earlier, this is my interjection, by the way, you know, we've done single stream before, and it was really actually quite disastrous due to the contamination rates and all the energy consumed from getting stuff from the household over to a material recovery facility, often in other states, and then it gets there and so much of it has to get thrown away because it's just awful. Obviously you can hear my bias. But John, what do you see as the pros and cons of either at the collection level, either single stream and between single stream and source separated?
That is a great question. I think about this a lot. I've thought about it a lot in the past. You know, when we first started, source separated was the way to go. I mean, obviously, you can't do single stream out of the back of a truck. It just doesn't work. The way I look at it is we've developed a program where source separated, we can see what's in the bin. Okay, so we can leave things, and we do leave things all the time, and we leave a lot of notes, and we keep leaving notes. Yeah, it takes a little time for the drivers to do that, but we do a lot. We've kind of streamlined that process a little bit. It's just all about education and letting these customers know, hey, look, this may say 2, but it's a bag. We don't take plastic bags. Don't ask me why these manufacturers think they can put a number 2 on a plastic bag. Is beyond me. I have no idea. And, you know, I guess we've really streamlined that process of giving our drivers, they have a one sheet of paper that has our do's and don'ts and what we take, what we don't take, and they just circle it or highlight it and they leave it in the bin. And if it needs to be more personal, they'll write a little note to the customer. So that helps keep everything clean, and that's why we've never had any loads rejected out of our facility. Okay, let's switch to single stream. I used to hate single stream. I'm warming up just a titch, not all the way there. But here's the problem with when you get too big in source separated recycling, you got to understand there's more labor, more trucks, more trailers. You're picking up. I mean, we can do it's about an 11-hour day. We can pick up 100, depends on the put out rate, but probably source separated pickups about 195 a day, and that's a lot. Whereas single stream, you can pick up close to, depending on your routes, and if they're right in a row, you can do 800 to 900. So it can be cheaper, but your contamination that's the biggest thing. I kind of look at it this way. Our customers are trained right now, our current customers. If we were to switch to single stream, I think they do a great job. However, some people may get lazy and think that, oh, this might be recycled, we're just gonna throw it in the bin. That happens all the time. I mean, the big saying is, when in doubt, throw it out. That's absolutely true. So, you know, you can do waste audits on single stream. It takes a lot of work. You know, you're sending somebody around in just a regular truck, and they're actually going through people's recycling bins to look and see what's in there, and you have to do that. But education it's just so important to let your customers know what you can take and what you can't take, because if you do switch to single stream, yes, it's more efficient. The trucks are very expensive. You know, And then you also have to find a home for the commingled recycling. So if the commingled recycling ever goes away, then you have to switch back to source separated recycling. But I don't foresee any of these big cities. Some of them have switched, but a lot of them are sticking with single stream and just doing a lot of education. So
Okay.
I'm still up in, I mean, I'm more towards source separated than single stream at this point. We'll just say that.
Okay. Well, we'll likely have a meeting, honestly, on just that one topic, similar to we might
Absolutely.
have a separate meeting on composting both food and yard waste, and just kind of home in on certain aspects of our waste reduction. So very good. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
I'm a huge proponent of source separated and huge.
Yes, I think you and I spoke about this. So
okay, let's see. What's that?
Denise, we've had some people drop off. Perhaps just at least tell those who are remaining that we're going to be sending out follow-up questionnaires and asking people to indicate their interest in continuing and perhaps even taking a leadership role in this kind of work. And we have another meeting that we are already planning in September. So we'll notify the attendees here of that meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. That's a great point, because one of our primary goals of this meeting was to identify other people in our community who are willing to help us being the waste board, all like 6 of us, move this ball forward. And so we will be sending out follow-up emails to everyone asking other questions, as well as asking who wants to help us. Maybe there's just somebody here who really is into food composting and wants to really get that going, and somebody else is really wanting to help the city expand its recycling, its curbside with John. You know what I mean? So whoever wants to get involved doesn't have to try and just take on the whole thing. But if you're interested in a certain aspect of it, we ask you to join us. And to that end, we're going to have a meeting September 14th, and I forgot. You'll get it in your email. And then if you're interested and you haven't heard from us or whatever, just contact Ann Brodsky, ABRODSKY at mt.net, and we'll get you plugged in to our work.
Our next meeting is September 14th. It's a Monday at 7 p.m. We'll do another Zoom meeting. We'll notify people by email who came to this one.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so we have a comment from Matt Alsacer. He says at 406 Recycling, we have begun collecting food waste using our bins and collection infrastructure otherwise idle from providing recycling and compost collection at events like Red Ants Pants and Montana Folk Fest, etc. Initial sign up is at 406recycling.com, and formal launch will be in September. That is amazingly exciting, Matt. I'm very happy to hear about that. And please keep our group apprised so we can help advertise for you.
Yeah, I would be curious where Matt is taking that material to be composted. If he's able to answer that.
Matt, can you, Pat, can you get Matt unmuted, or we're working on that.
Yep. Matt should be able to talk.
I think he'll still need to unmute himself, even though the host has allowed him to speak.
While that's happening, hang on a minute, Matt. I have a logistical question for Pat that Jill Van Alstyne asked, which is there a way for all of us to see who is on the Zoom call so we can start making connections? I don't know, but
yeah,
we can.
The answer to that is because this is a webinar mode, that's not built into its functionality. But we can, follow up with participants and try to coordinate.
Right. Okay. So Matt, are you unmuted and ready to answer Brian's question? Okay, it doesn't appear so, but Ryan, we'll make sure Matt gets in touch with you. And
He was able to write into the Q&A, Denise.
Yes, you're right. So he says, thank you, Amanda. He says, for the time being, yes, compost in Belgrade, long-term other plans. And compost is all caps. Does that answer your question, Ryan?
Yep, sure does. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, where are we now? I knew this question in A was going to be a little bit challenging. Matt also mentioned that he has, 406 Recycling has a recycling route for data destruction and electronics collection throughout Gallatin. But Matt, I think you also have an recycling program like every month or something. And Jill, I know you had asked about that when you were looking in your the school's waste bins. So if you can get in touch with Matt, we'll make sure we get you two connected if you don't have a way of doing so right now. So you can learn more about Matt's electronic recycling program. Okay, where are we now? All right, so we have a question for Katie from Diana. So she says, great 5th grade ambassadors program. How did you start the ZWAP with the schools? And can you describe that process in a little more detail?
Now I can, yes. Thanks, that's a good question. So we conceived of the program and very intentionally made some decisions, like the 5th grade, that age. It's an age at which conceptually the kids are old enough to understand big ideas like climate change and a circular economy. But while they're still in elementary school, it's a lot easier to access the classes as opposed to middle school where they're switching around. So some of those little pieces came together logistically, along with this whole concept that, like I said, like seatbelts and cigarettes, when the kids have these concepts, they take it to their parents, and they're the ones who bring those messages home. So we felt really strongly that we wanted to get the youth involved. And then we reached out, and there is precedent in Missoula, which was nice in that there are some programs. I was inspired by there's a symphony program. All the 4th grade classes go to a symphony that's designed for kids. So I'm like, well, heck, if they can go to the symphony, they can come to Home Resource. And it's really important. So then we reached out to some teachers, and we did find a teacher advocate. And everything we do at Home Resource, we try to follow this process where we do a pilot first. So we found a teacher who was excited, a 5th grade teacher at one school. There were 3 5th grades in that school. She got one other 5th grade teacher excited about it. And then we just tested it. We piloted it. We came into the 5th grade classroom. Then we ran the field trip at Home Resource. We got a lot of feedback from the teachers and from the students. And that was just our first year. And then the next year we ran it again and tried to reach out to a lot more teachers. And it did build slowly, so that last year was the first year we had all of MCPS and almost all the parochial and private schools as well in Missoula. So it did build on itself, but we had some really strong teacher advocates, and that was a big help. It didn't come through the principals as we hoped or thought it might, or through the school administration. And we also every year are really careful we always evaluate the program. We ask the teachers for feedback. We tested it multiple times. We'd make changes. For example, we have a game, ZWAP the game, and maybe we'll copyright it someday, but we did. When we came up with a game concept, we tested it with a bunch of 6th graders who'd been through ZWAP and got their feedback like, this is really boring and this works okay. And so every year we try to do new iterations and try new things. We also have had a really crucial Energy Corps service member. So it's an AmeriCorps program who's been our ZWAP educator. And it's so important when you're working with that many youth to have some fresh energy and have someone who's flexible and really dedicated to that program. So we have the core home resource staff who are able to deliver it, but then we also are able to share that experience and get new ideas and energy from the energy core folks who do it as well. Our biggest startup cost was the cost of buses. So we do part of it, we go to the schools, and then part of it, we bus each class to home resource for a big field trip. So that was our biggest fundraising push from the start. And we did get support for that. And then we've built on that to be able to mostly fund the program through fundraising.
Katie, did you ever consider working with like the high schools for like the students to have projects, which would be to develop the curriculum for the 5th graders? That kind of relationship?
Yeah, we did. We've dabbled with working with the high schools quite a bit. All of our high schools have an environmental club of one sort or another, and they do things like composting and recycling. I find that most of those high school students, and we do a lot of presentations for them, but most of them don't actually have time or capacity outside of their school and their sports to do things like develop a whole curriculum. And so we've worked in other ways to try to engage those high school students. And that's a piece that I'd like to see continue, and especially when they do the 5th grade SWAP, and then when we get our 6th grade science curriculum in there, so they don't just go to middle school and not be able to use the skills that they just learned, and then have that high school program as well. We do have a high school program that's related to our work programs that I talked about, where the high schoolers come and work at home resource, so they get a job experience, but it's another intersection with home resource and the zero waste work that we do.
Great, thanks, Katie. So we have a question for John from Diana. John, do you have any suggestions about how we can increase the participation rate in the curbside recycling program, and what are the barriers to participation that you're aware of?
I don't think it's cost. The city does support us. First, I guess not us, but the program, and offers some financial assistance for people who do sign up. So it's very affordable for households to sign up, and it's actually billed to their water bill. Now, keep in mind that's only city residents that own their own home that can participate in that program, but renters can get the homeowners to do that as well. You know, some other obstacles is, you know, people get to actually bring their recycling to the transfer station, the same things that we take as well, and they can do that if they do have a dump permit. I don't know if that matters or not. Either way, they get to recycle. You know, people know we're around now. It's kind of no secret anymore. Our trucks are all over the place. So I don't think it's a matter of advertising. But very good question, Diana. If you have any suggestions, let me know, because I would love to get the participation rate up again. I mean, like I said, we've already had 40 signups this month, which has been a great month. And hopefully it continues that way. So I'm always looking for suggestions from people. I really don't see any barriers. It's very affordable. Yeah, so I'm open.
I would weigh in on that a little bit, in that I could see one barrier possibly being if you live in a small place and maybe you don't have a good location for the bins to maintain. And so then you still care, you still want to recycle. And so you figure out how to just run to the transfer station and drop stuff off. Or the city also provides those big dumpsters throughout the city, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
but
glass, unfortunately, with
glass or plastic.
Yeah, no glass, no plastic. Which, you know, I guess if you're going to be driving there, you might as well just drive to the transfer station if you want to recycle those items. Unfortunately, at this time, we just do not have drop-off at our facility just because it's so costly to get rid of the materials. And everybody wants to, I mean, I get tons and tons of calls from people from Great Falls, from Halifax, and it's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, can we drop stuff off? And I'm like, unfortunately, you can't, which is sad. Otherwise, our facility would just be traffic nonstop, but we just don't have that ability quite yet.
Right. Have you, John, reached out to the schools perhaps to see how to help them recycle more?
Yeah, so we do most of the schools. We do the recycling we have for years. Our original program was you would find sponsors to pay for the recycling at the schools, and then we would highlight the sponsorship for those people. And we've done that since we started. So I think it's been, we started that in, I believe 2010. We started recycling for the schools, and Jill has been at Helena High, and she's got one of the best recycling programs. I would say at the school level at Helena High, they do a great job. But we can all do better with that.
Well, I guess what I was referring to was it drives me absolutely batty when I go to the basketball games and the volleyball games.
Oh, it's crazy.
I know, and we as people who show up, we don't have a place to put our recyclables, and of course they do way too much plastic, and we could talk to them about that. But when there's cans and there's plastic, and as we walk away, there's massive, huge garbage bins for us to throw all that away. And I guess I would like to work with the schools on that for events.
And we'd be totally willing to help. 406 recycling, they do some event recycling. We used to do it. We kind of got out of it a little bit. I just don't have the staff to do it, because you do these events, and if you're not manning these events, you bring that recycling back, and it's hours and hours and hours of people of my staff sorting through recycling.
Yeah,
and it's unfortunately that it costs money. And a lot
but
of it
even
in
if we
wages.
just did two things, the aluminum cans and the plastic bottles right there, if we had two bins and asked, it would help. We'll talk more about
agreed.
that, John.
Yeah, no, and I would love to help out with that. So maybe our next
Soccer games too, and football games as well for the outdoor ones. So
I'm
we have a stand up.
Ask Denise. I'm curious whether Chase or Katie have any comments about whether they've done
agreed.
in Missoula to deal with those sports events at schools.
Okay.
I don't have a great answer for that. One of the things that Chase and I both experienced was the stadium at the University of Colorado in Boulder, which is a completely zero waste stadium. And we've been deeply inspired by that, but haven't been able to move that forward here. But Chase has worked with Parks and Rec, the city Parks and Rec. And so there is some recycling and I think sometimes compost at some of the big sports events, not related to the schools, but like tournaments and kids sports events. So that is a big step in the right direction. Again, that's one of those key institutions, but the high school is a good idea.
Great. Okay, we have a couple of calls, people on the phone who have raised their hand. And I think we have Pat just muted, sorry. 406-266-1039, you are on.
Oh, I think that was me. But Denise, this is Karen, and John, this is Karen. And actually, Denise, you asked my question. It was regarding schools and working with schools to just do a better job of recycling. So I think you kind of asked that, and John, you kind of answered it.
Yeah, just real briefly, there, Recycle Montana has some really cool recycling trunks, is what they call them. And there's a bunch of information inside of those trunks, and they've done an excellent job of putting them together. And these are great for the grade schools. I wouldn't really per se, I don't think it's good for the high schools. I think they're too old, but great for the grade schools. So definitely everybody take note of that, to get a hold of Recycle Montana. And the schools they don't rent them, they'll just give them to use, and then they have to give them back.
Oh, love that. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, and then we have call-in user 2.
Hi, this is Matt. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Is that true?
Yes, we can. Thanks,
Great.
Matt.
Well, just recently on the event stuff, 406 Recycling does do a lot of events, and we sort of have a different staff structure, but that often includes volunteers from events. And we also have a fair inventory of Clearstream bins that are from DEQ, so we can provide those to anyone. And basically we then get that recycling to Helena Recycling after the weekend. And I know some of the state soccer tournaments are ones where someone picks up bins from our warehouse and then just brings them back, or we pick them up from a designated spot. So we can certainly help with events working with Helena Recycling. And then on the food collection, there'll be more about that, but basically 406recycling.com does have a basic Google form for information, and that's a partnership with an existing composter in Belgrade. Since our trucks go down empty almost weekly now, as we provide electronics recycling for Gallatin County and the county itself at Logan Landfill and for businesses.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Pat, there's another caller. If you could allow them to speak.
I'm not seeing it, Denise.
Oh, it just went away. It must have when.
Yeah, I think we covered both of them.
Okay, hang on. It looks like we have one more question. Actually, it's a statement from Diana. Interesting possible partnership among the city, Carroll College, and the school districts, and to be determined food waste processors. So we agree. Okay, I don't see any more hands up or questions posed in the Q&A board. So do any of our panelists have any closing remarks, comments, questions of us?
I just want to thank all of you that put this on. It's very, I know it's taken a lot of time to put this together. We were supposed to meet in person. Unfortunately, we get this, but it's been very, very good for me to listen to all the other speakers, and it was nice to hear you guys in your different cities and what you're doing, and everybody that put it on. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
I would like to echo my gratitude for the opportunity to talk tonight about our program and just know how much Missoula values partners in the state and other cities. And I think there is tremendous potential in Helena from meeting in person with Denise and Ann and the Conservation Committee when I was able to travel over to Helena. And just know that you have a resource in me and the city of Missoula to continue this momentum and make it happen and become a really strong partner in Montana. And that's how we're going to get it done. So thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chase.
Completely agree with Chase and John. Thank you so much. We all know how hard you worked on this, and also just call on us at any time. There's nothing more exciting when you're a waste geek than having someone else who's interested in helping move it forward. But really, we can only do this together, and we all have lessons to share with each other, and we're gonna make it happen.
We certainly are. Thank you, Katie.
Yes, thanks for having us, and Anne, thanks for coming out a couple months ago and touring our facility as well.
Yep. All right, well, I think we're done. If anybody else in the audience wants to have any parting comments, otherwise I think we'll wrap up. This has been recorded, and we will put this webinar, this meeting, on our website, and I believe you all have the links to that. You will be hearing from us soon via emails. And one more pitch to, if you are interested in helping us with this effort, please let us know. Call us if you already have our numbers, and if not, contact Ann Brodsky, ABRODSKY @mt.net. And hopefully we will soon have a group called Zero Waste Helena that is comprised of people willing to put in the time and the effort and the work to get our waste stream significantly reduced, both upstream and downstream. So thank you, everyone.
One more thing, for those who've appeared on the phone, I think the other people who came through their computers, we have your email addresses. But if you've entered this conversation on the phone, I don't believe we necessarily have your email addresses. And please do email me, because we are going to be sending up a follow-up email in the next couple of days to see your interest in pursuing whatever as we move forward, and to let you know about the next meeting. And we'll have a little survey. So my email, again, Denise just gave it, but it's abrodsky@mt.net. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening and week, and we'll be in touch.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.